All right, Travis Wayne Goodsell. Today, yeah, ooh, I got it. Whoops. Today is just the shooting, and so there's nothing else on the news today, and since I already figured out what was going on in the first minute of turning on the TV, I don't need to watch any more of it, and they're not covering anything else. And so I've also changed my internet security, and so I get to see how that does. And I guess the best way to test an internet security is to look for a site that would send a virus threat to me to see if my new security system would protect me. So, since I'm hearing that porn sites usually have viruses, maybe I'll go searching around for a porn site that'll send me a virus to see if it works. But officer, or ossifer. Alright, so this video, instead of joking about my personal life, it's a book review. I'm probably going to do a new playlist for book reviews, even though it covers Mormonism, because the author of this book is a Mormon, and clearly he's been taught in the manner of apologetics. So yeah, you got to be very skeptical with Mormon apologetics, but this particular book had a title that I thought there might be something to pick out of it. You know, like when you have a little casserole that your mom makes for you, and she puts all those vegetables in it. No, the vegetables are the apologetics. They're good for nothing. And I'm allergic to all food green. If you haven't seen that macaroni and cheese commercial, they're kicking butt on those commercials. Especially the little girl who's running around the house. No, I'm not eating it. No. So yeah, it was a new subscriber to my newly used channel. He directed me to oh my goodness, there we go. So Moroni's Code, Ciphers and Ancient Egyptian Knowledge. So yes, as one who has deciphered the Book of Mormon code, I thought, oh, somebody thinks they're using the Mormon's code with Egyptian knowledge in it. And so if you don't know about any of my other achievements, I have been able to identify a number of prominent apologetic Mormons who have instead destroyed the church. They, as well-meaning and active as they are, thinking that what they're doing is helping the church and defending truth, they're actually exposing some fraud and plagiarism and such. So I'm pretty sure that this guy was going to do it, and he does get himself involved in some apologetic tactics, which I'll be pointing out here. I haven't read through the whole thing. It doesn't look like there's much to it anyway. But he starts off the book talking about the ancient Egyptians, as if he knows all about the ancient Egyptians. And he just talks and talks all about the Egyptians. And most of this is general knowledge, and so he doesn't need to reference it. That's what Gary Greenberg did in his 101 Myths of the Bible. He He talked about general information. And so Christians, in order to defend Christianity from the evils of Gary Greenberg's hypothesis, because the book doesn't really explain what he's found. He just saw some connections and put them together in a book. I'll do that review another time, maybe. Yeah. And so you don't need to put references for generally known information. I mean, granted, they're Egyptian stuff, and people who don't study Egyptian don't know it, but that doesn't mean you have to reference it for them. And so he makes it known from the beginning, ancient Egyptian knowledge. So it's understood that there's a prerequisite for reading this book. And so just like prerequisites for school, you need to take the prerequisites in order to understand the class that you're wanting to take. Alright, so I'm not going to get into that. He talks about the Rhine papyrus, which is good because that's the mathematical papyrus, and so then he gets into a belief, and here's where he needs to be doing better with footnoting. And he footnotes Wikipedia and other websites, which in today's world, yeah, you reference websites because that's where all the information is going now, because to buy books is quite a lot, and thus it becomes more difficult to reference, whereas we can go to the internet and get that information, and even from the books themselves you can now get PDFs of the books. But here he says, other items believed to involve ancient Egyptian mathematical equations are references to the and he lists a whole bunch of stuff, and he only has one footnote reference, and then back in the footnotes, I hate it when they put them in the back. If there's somebody footnoting something, it needs to be at the bottom of the page. Don't you dare put it in the back of the book. Even back in the chapter, at the end of the chapter, which I've noticed some authors do. That's also a little bit frustrating, because then you got to flip to find where they are, and then flip back to where you were reading to continue reading. No, put it at the bottom of the page. Quit all this nonsense. Alright, and so one footnote for all of these? No. You do a footnote for each and every single one, because you're saying other items believed. So if it's just the one person who believes all of these things, then yeah, one reference for the one footnote. But he's doing lots of references for the one footnote. So that was poorly done. But that's insignificant to the quality of the book. Okay, and so then he does something good. He does... It's so weird doing it this way, trying to get it right. It's worse than trying to cut my own hair. Okay, so as you can see here, he does put the hieratic in here, and shows the numbering system for each of them. He does he does show his weakness. He shows these two right here as the same number, as if it's different. He does not indicate that this one you read from here over this way, and this one is here reading this way. So that's a oops. So clearly he doesn't really know Egyptian. He's trying to learn himself. And that's fine. but you got to make sure you know what you're doing. So you can't just be a first semester student doing a book like this, trying to defend the Book of Mormon. So yeah, that's not good. You don't do thesis work on your first day of class. All right, so he then exploits his other ignorances by talking about, and I'll read the whole paragraph here, even though I'm at 10 minutes right now. He says, Egyptian knowledge came to the Israelites through several sources. And so already flags are going up everywhere because he's using the traditional understanding of things. And so I'm going to be very cautious and very critical about each and every single word he uses in his sentences because of the subject matter. And I can do that because I am educated on this subject. That was my main course of study, from which I got a bachelor's from. And then additional years of schooling that I didn't graduate from, but I just went there and took all of Eva Vasilevska's anthropology courses. Okay, so Egypt is close to Israel. See, here's already he blew it. Why did he blow it? Well, if we look on today's map, Israel is close to Egypt. Do you see what's wrong with that? When did the Israelites live? Way, way, way back in the BCs. So do we use today's maps for yesteryear? No. You've got to use the map appropriate to the time period. And this is a major blunder Jason Allen Pitts is using. He does not know his ancient history. And he exposes himself right here. And so, yeah, he doesn't know Egyptian, as I pointed out with the numbering thing. And then he doesn't know his biblical history either. Because Israel was Egypt. Pause for effect. Now, how was Egypt covering the land of Israel? Because they were the dominant country, and Israel had to pay tribute to Egypt. And so he can claim that it's when the kings were around, because Egypt's power over Israel weakened during that king period, except for the David and Solomon and the first two separated kingdoms, because there's no historical record of them in the land of Israel. And I already published a book on this, so I already know the answer. But yeah, he's talking about the Israelites back in the earliest days, and that's where he makes a blunder, because he's not talking about the kingdom, the various kingdoms in Israel during the kingships. He's talking about the origins of the house of Israel. And so, yeah, he blew it, because Canaan was Egypt, and even in the Bible it tells you so. Because who were Ham's sons? Canaan and Mitzrayim, Egypt and Canaan. They were all under the area belonging to Ham, and so they were one and the same country. Alright, and then he tries to claim that he knows about the prophet Moses, who was raised by the Egyptian pharaoh's daughter. So again, he's presupposing the truth of the biblical record. The biblical record is wrong on this count. It's It's wrong on many counts, but it's wrong on this one too. A pharaoh's daughter never takes care of a baby without being married. She's not married in the story, because she wouldn't be living with Pharaoh if she were married, unless she were queen. And so when you understand that the Hebrew bayet for daughter has that vowel yod in it, because the Bible was written when vowels were used. So take out the vowels and see if that changes the meaning. And so what you would have is, instead of Pharaoh's daughter, it would be Pharaoh's house. Big difference. So house of Egypt, or house of Pharaoh, house of Israel. Now, it's clearly talking about an individual in the passage, isn't it? So is the term house of Pharaoh or Israel, because it refers to the queen from Egyptian. The house of Pharaoh is the queen. So the house of Israel, it's actually incorrect, because there are two houses of Israel, Rachel and Leah. And then there are concubines, but those aren't considered houses, because they're under Rachel or Leah, who are the official houses. And so then he says, undoubtedly. He's now speculating. This is an apologetic tactic. He doesn't know the subject matter, and now he's speculating. And so he makes down here in the next paragraph, thus we see. So he's set up a faulty structure for his argument. It's unsound. And then concludes, thus we see. No, we don't. You don't know your history, you've got that incorrect, and you now threw in a speculation, both of which are unsound. And so the premises do not lead to thus we see. We don't see. So apologists do this all the time in the church. They do it all the time in other areas where they're called apologists, but yeah. And so already I'm getting bored, losing interest, when he already provided me with a chart, but I already got that from the Google search pictures, which is probably where he got it from, and did a little paste here in the book. And so then he goes on to talk about, Nephi, Mosiah, and Zeniff all mention knowledge. See, he's assuming, he's presupposing the truth of the Book of Mormon as a historical document based on real people in ancient America. And so again, he's got his information wrong. And so he's using that as examples for his conclusion, which was already unsound. This is how much of a joke this book is. And so and so then I get bored and I skip ahead, and then I start seeing numbers, and this is the meat of his thing. And so he set it up with presuppositions and speculations, and now he's trying to justify getting to the meat of his case. And he's already lost me. And so now I have to go back to find out when he starts this numbers thing. And so I'm not recognizing, as I flip through it, any significance to the title, Ciphers and Ancient Egyptian Knowledge. Mormon's code. You know, I'm not seeing it. And so, yeah, I've lost respect. When I was hoping he could pull out something of value that I could use, and he doesn't, because I know more than he does. So yeah, you don't need to footnote that. That's common knowledge of the ancient calendar of the Egyptians. There's two. Did he even mention that there were two calendars? Okay, the civil calendar. I don't see him talking about a religious one. Yeah, he doesn't. He doesn't talk about the religious calendar. Yeah, I'm not seeing it here. So, yeah, he doesn't have a clue as to what he's talking about. So, yeah, this was a big disappointment. It does give some interesting stuff that is common knowledge. But for the most part, don't be an apologist. Don't follow after their ways. It's just leading you astray down to false paths, forbidden paths. Recognize that, Mormons? Forbidden paths. Now, there's a code for you.